Our consumer investigative reporter Susan L. Corey is looking at how the days of midnight doorbuster deals are becoming a thing of the past.
Hi, welcome to the channel. And today I need your help with something. I need you to steal these Pokémon. Why? Well, because they don't technically belong to me.
To protect the world from devastation.
To unite all people within our nation.
Let me rephrase that a little bit. Yes, I did design the Pokemon from today's video, but being that they're inspired by various businesses and business practices as a whole, it kind of stops me in a number of ways from uploading them as my own creations. You see, a brief overview of copyright law states that it protects characters, specifically those with very specific traits, as part of a larger work. The extended protection depends on how well delineated the original character is from the parody or creation. Take, for example, Papa Meat. He's a YouTuber and animator who I actually thoroughly enjoy. His animation Wabbit season was stricken down as Warner Brothers claimed that he was using their character. And while his version of Bugs Bunny may look different to you and I, they state that it is far too similar and thus enter not only Warner Bros. Custody, but technically Warner Bros. Bugs Bunny canon as well. But other creators like Risfrake Waterfield take into account these type of situations and look for characters who've entered public domain, like they did with Winnie the Pooh when they created Blood and Honey, which now has spawned a cinematic universe known as the Poohniverse. I'm not joking, go ahead and look that up. And that's why today I need you to steal these Pokemon. Use them in your projects, whatever you want. Doesn't matter to me, they're not mine. So I call upon you, audience, and specifically you, Jeremy, to hop into today's video. Hi, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern. Welcome to the channel. While you're here, don't forget to drop down below, like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that fun stuff that makes me and YouTube happy, and let's start committing crimes as a family. So step one, I have to find a business or franchise around me that would inspire a Pokemon. But where, oh where in the great capitalist United States am I to find advertisement? No one is ever trying to advertise to me. Nowhere, not a sight seen is an advertisement of someone trying to sell me a product or service. Luckily, I was able to look into my left hand where I was holding a Starbucks cup. Now, for those of you who don't know, Starbucks' name comes from the ship in Moby Dick, the Starbuck. From there, the literary allegory kind of ends. Yes, the logo itself is a twin-tailed mermaid, so I knew kind of the direction that we were meant to go with this look. I decided that I wanted to focus on that mermaid inspiration and throw in some coffee and barista motifs along the way. Going from there, I felt like I needed to really capture the look and design, not just of the Starbucks logo, but of the atmosphere that Starbucks creates as a whole. So moving from mermaid, I then moved into siren, because Starbucks is known not just for selling coffee and mediocre treats, but also for selling CDs and music. So I decided to move into the siren type of look, create this character that lures in audiences, lures in trainers with this melodic song, which it then uses to sell them coffee, or something of the like. As you know, I'm terrible with abilities, so I'm hoping that you guys can come up with some abilities, not just for this Pokemon, but for the rest as we move along. I really enjoyed going through and trying to figure out how to capture these different areas of inspiration, specifically that barista vibe. I decided to move the tail into this swooped pattern so that this character could be leaning on their tail much as a barista would lean on a counter. I also played up the tail energy a little bit, starting out with this bluish watery type of look, but very quickly moving into a more coffee and brown type of pattern. I'm really hoping that it doesn't just come across as dirty water and more so comes across as coffee or drinks of the like. It was really something that stuck in my head and I was really concerned about, but I feel like moving the hair into the same type of pattern plays into the vibe that I'm going for a little bit more. I felt kind of stuck with some of the inspiration on here. Again, the logo of Starbucks isn't actually a mermaid, but a twin-tailed mermaid. And I very much could have done that here, could have tried, could have failed. But I decided that I wanted to go with something a little bit more classical and a little bit more simple. You may notice that you might have seen this design before or one similar to it if you follow me on Patreon. Over there I post designs that I usually have no intention of including in future videos, but this happened to be one that was exclusive to the Patreon for a good while before realizing that I wanted to redesign it for this video. So here we have Marista. Marista is a psychic water type with the ability to lull people in and capture them itself, bearing down on them with its tremendous strength. Sailors have long told stories of being lured out to the ocean, whether by sound or by the sweet aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Regardless, many have found their way into the clutches of this dangerous Pokemon to be pulled off into a ghostly afterlife. But what advertisement to capture next? Well, luckily a little bird told me everything. Absolutely everything. That little bird does not stop going off on my phone. So I decided, why not tackle Twitter? Not X, Twitter. Because you see, I want to make this a two-stage line, starting off with our little blue Twitter bird and moving on into the more modern resemblance of what this app has become. So starting out, I wanted to focus on something small and cute, and luckily the logo for Twitter inspired quite a bit. It is a small blue bird. So, for a starter Pokemon, or for a first stage, I should say, of a two-line, having a little blue bird makes some sense. And it's not a Pokemon design that I feel like we've seen. I can't really think of very many blue birds outside of variants of already existing Pokemon. Like Oricorio has a blue-ish form, and Squawkability does become blue sometimes. But outside of that, it's odd to me that we don't have a blue bird Pokemon. If I'm missing something or forgetting a Pokemon, let me know down in the comments, but as far as I know, bluebirds, blue jays, and the like haven't appeared in Pokemon yet. So it was a really good opportunity to play up that dynamic and create something that felt not only original, but iconic in a couple different senses. Plus, it allowed me to bring in the inspiration while playing with the colors and playing with the layout a little bit more. Being that logo is so iconic to the world of tech and information, I felt like I had to capture something that really hit that iconic type of look. Because what is a logo but a way to recognize a business or franchise or infrastructure on immediate sight? I want this Pokemon to function very much the same way. So meet Twitterwit, the pure flying type. Long ago, people depended on this Pokemon to spread information from one village to another. However, as the world progressed, this Pokemon would begin to interject its own version of information and change the inherent value of the word spread across villages. So with that, many people decided to put away this Pokemon and no longer utilize it to spread word, instead focusing on modern technology, which ironically was inspired by this Pokemon. But as I said, I wanted this Pokemon to evolve with the times. Much as Twitter became X, I want this Pokemon to evolve into something that felt sleek, felt modern, felt cool. I really looked at Pokemon like Lucario and Blaziken as inspiration for this, and kind of focused my mind around the idea of what if these two very cool and very popular Pokemon were kind of fused together in some ways. Obviously throwing on that X factor, if you will, on top of the whole thing. So I played up that idea a lot, and I came out with something that I'm really happy with. I really love the design and layout of creating this Pokemon, and while it is difficult to come up with a quote-unquote cool Pokemon like Lucario, like Blaziken, like Zeraora, like Zoroark, like these types that people tend to flock around, I feel like this one really hits that spot. It also has a little bit of Digimon inspiration based on one of my favorite Pokemon, that being Veemon and his whole line. And so with all that put together, I felt like I was coming up with something that at the very least I thought was interesting. So hopefully you do as well, despite how you may feel about these different corporations. Hopefully at least these Pokemon can be something that you can cherish and love. I know that when focusing on this as a prompt, there's a lot of back and forth in conversation, and while I have my sides and you have yours, they may be the same, they may be different. I hope that we can at least look at the designs for these Pokemon and say either it's cool or it's not, regardless of what business practices it may be reliant on for its creation. So meet Xertwit. The name is delineated from circuit, Zer, X-E-R, to try and get that X lettering in there, and wit, as people who tend to be on X or Twitter tend to do so with a certain amount of wit to their responses and bite to their posts. Some have regarded this Pokemon as the best way to send and receive information, with others stating that given this Pokemon's penchant for the ability to repeat what others say, it may be a danger of use. This Pokemon and its abilities have led to a split in population, whether this Pokemon is useful or a danger. Next up, I wanted to focus on a Pokemon that revolves around the idea of business. And so when looking at that, specifically the hierarchical structure of business and how it's formatted, I decided to go with the inspiration of lemmings. Lemmings are known to be followers, following command and just doing what they need to do to stay a part of the pack. In fact, back in 1958, Disney released a documentary called White Wilderness, where lemmings were seen jumping off of a cliff solely because the one in front of them also did. The reality is that at that time, Disney crews kicked these lemmings off the cliff purposefully to show just how much of a follower this animal is. Realistically, it's not something that this animal does, but it formatted the idea that lemmings will follow one another regardless of the danger that may be perceived. So when looking at Pokemon for this, I wanted to bring in that lemming inspiration. I also thought this would be a very cute and fun type of Pika clone, so I brought that in as well, because it's a rodent, and rodents are Pika clones, and Pika clones are rodents. So I brought that in and really wanted to play up that business aspect of it, using the patterns of the body to create this almost faux business suit of this Pokemon. I also wanted it to have this kind of bored and saddened expression, like the type of Pokemon that you sit in front of a computer and it works all day, every day. I don't know how that feels. Not me. Nope. Anyway, I played up the idea a little bit and wanted to create something that felt cute, but also kind of sad. And so I created this design, and I really, really, really love it. I'm almost saddened that I'm giving this away to you as the audience, rather than keeping it for myself, because I love this little monstrosity that I've created. So this is Lemprat. The name comes from lemming, prat, and rat. Again, being that it's a vermin. It's a pure electric type, and while I love this little creature, I have to admit it is such a sad little existence this thing lives. This Pokemon lives and moves in large packs. This makes it difficult to track, not for its numbers, but for the fact that they will often lead themselves into large circles. Being that they don't have a clear and distinct leader, they will follow one another aimlessly. Evolving this Pokemon was a bit of a challenge. How do you evolve a Pokemon that's whole thing is that it follows aimlessly? Well, you create a clear leadership line. So I wanted this Pokemon to feel like it was everything that these Pokemon in its previous form would look up to. It's business savvy, it's strong, it's tall, it's big. So I wanted something that really captured that idea. The ideal of what this Pokemon sees that it could be if it just works a little bit harder and works itself up this non-existent ladder. I wanted it to feel almost superhero-esque, and found myself really drawn into the inspiration of the character as just big businessmen. One of my favorite movies is American Psycho, and I have to say that was a big inspiration towards the point of this character. It was huge and it was big, and there's this sense of cynicism behind those same cold, dead eyes. While everything else has grown larger and bigger and more massive, the face and eyes of this sad, sad, sad Pokemon remain. So fun, so crazy, and so much on my conscience for creating something so desperate to escape. One of the most challenging, but also one of my more favorite parts of this design was trying to find a way to evolve that suit that we see in the first form. I worked really hard to make sure that that first form felt like it was wearing a suit, but also felt natural to the design of a Pokemon, or any animal. This one, I wanted to expand on that, but had a little bit of trouble. Luckily, I was able to work on it a little bit more, play up some of the line work, and figure out some shapes that I felt really evolved the idea of that suit. Not just this ill-fitting monkey suit that this Pokemon would be wearing, but instead focusing it on this well-tailored and handcrafted suit. One that really emphasizes the already massive shape of this Pokemon. It was a ton of fun, and really allowed me to experiment with the line work and shapes that I'm not super common with. So here we have it. This is Lempser, an electric fairy type. The fairy type may seem odd, but I wanted it to still have that dreamlike quality. This is a Pokemon that many Lemprat don't believe actually exists. The boss hidden away in a far-off office. Once in a great while, a pack of Lemprat will have one evolve into a Lempser. This becomes the de facto leader of the pack, often leading them into grander projects, cutting down trees, moving boulders, all to create larger workspaces for the entirety of the pack. Once there is well established, a Lempser will move on, attempting to take control of other packs that are larger and more profitable. So who is your favorite? Who are you adding to the team? And which of these Pokemon are you going to steal? When you do, make sure to post that fan art to our Discord down in the description. I'm very excited to see what you guys come up with. We've got a great community there of people talking about Pokemon, Fakemon, Digimon, Transformers, Five Nights at Freddy's, you name it, it's gonna be there. We love our little community and I like to hang out there from time to time, so I hope I can see you there. But with all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me, and I'll catch you in the next one. But before we go, I want to give a big shout out to all of the people who help make these videos possible. You can show your support for the channel through Patreon or through YouTube membership. Over at the Patreon, some of our higher tier supporters are Dan Hassel, Chompy Katchan, Kobo4231, Elandriel, Sky, Yuja Sakaki, Drake Null, Jeremy Sunday, Justin Grenier, Siren Shadows, Kaylin Cat, Soren Frost, Styx TV, Dan Bush, and our newest member to the Patreon, Mario Pineda. Thank you guys so much for the support. I also want to shout out our YouTube members, those being Lynxia, RJ, Zed Ravenmore, Siren Shadows, Somni Stars, Kaylin Cat, Crimbo McSwizzle, and our newest YouTube member, Liam Wood. Thank you guys so much. So happy that this is something that you guys enjoy and that I can keep doing. So I hope I can see you in the next one. Bye! Oh, I got word of this, my first cease and desist letter.